Discovering voices, building worlds. The Ampliverse.
Welcome to Harry Potter and the Anxious Millennials, a show where we delve week by week into each chapter of the Harry Potter series. Ari, hello.
Adam, hi. How are you?
I am so excited for a couple reasons.
Okay. For multiple reasons.
Listen, we're on the penultimate chapter of this book.
We are. Here we are. We've arrived.
We're almost done. And honestly, I think after this book, we won't really have to yell about Harry being a brat anymore.
No, it's only this one.
This chapter especially, I feel like is very just like teenage boy throws a temper tantrum. And I am not trying to be mean. He just watched his godfather die.
Yeah, right.
It's a little heavy in this chapter. But so I'm excited for that. And I'm also excited because you will be here.
I'm coming.
In Chicago.
Yes.
In 5 days? 5 days.
Yeah. We'll be seeing the concert today, Adam. A week from today.
Oh, yes.
Like, that's crazy.
Well, I think when they hear it, I think it was...
Oh, sure. When our listeners... Yeah, it'll be long after.
Yeah.
Because we've been doubling up to get her done.
Yeah,
to get to that movie. Okay. Well, anyways.
Ari,
back to the book.
This week, we read chapter 37 called The Lost Prophecy.
The Lost Prophet.
The Lost Prophet. What happens in this chapter?
So in this chapter, Dumbledore finally gives Harry all the deets. He tells Harry the full story. He doesn't summarize anything. And unfortunately, that's what we're going to have to do for this chapter as well.
Yeah.
I wish you could see my notes because I was like, everything that Dumbledore was saying, I was like, I feel like I have to talk about this. So I've done my best.
You've had two in a row for you where your chapters have been like, and now I have to like go sentence by sentence.
Yeah. This one obviously is that this one makes sense to me because I feel like in terms of the series, this chapter is like...
This is huge.
Yes. Like if we're looking at the series as a whole arc, what would this be? This is like essentially where we're rising action, basically.
I mean, in this series, it's almost...
Because you have
it's almost like 5, 6, and 7 are a trilogy.
Yeah.
And like 4 is the like prequel to the trilogy. And then 1, 2, 3 are just like fun things that happen at school. Because they the books shift after. True, yeah. At the end of 4.
And I guess Voldemort coming back is kind of like really the start of like the rising action into the climax. So like this is the moment... I don't know, what would you call this moment? You can't say like, well, maybe it's a little bit of an all is lost moment because like he has just lost Sirius, but it's not the actual like, it's the end, type of feeling. But I think in this like sequence of events, this is the all is lost moment kind of. We get an all is lost moment and yet like, I don't know what you would call it when you kind of finally get the answers to all these questions you've had throughout the story. We're getting a little bit of that in this chapter as well. Mm-hmm. So the chapter opens with Harry arriving back in Dumbledore's office, and naturally all of the portraits are sleeping, as they do. And Harry, standing in this very silent room, is very uncomfortable because the silence is making him... He's feeling this feeling of like, obviously intense grief, and I can't remember exactly how it's written, but it's something about if the room was reflecting how he feels right now, the portraits would be screaming. And I was like, that's very chilling to think about that. And then because it is so silent in this room, Harry doesn't really have another choice but to just think. And of course, what he thinks about is that Sirius's death is his fault because he fell for Voldemort's trick. And I just want to say, like, I do understand this guilt for Harry, but when, like, obviously Voldemort is, like, evil, and so the person in the wrong is Voldemort for, like, manipulating Harry. But I do think in situations like this, there is kind of this, like, there's a little bit of victim blaming that happens with ourselves or, like, with, like, other people. We'll be like, well, why did you believe that, you know, when it's like, but that's not really the issue.
Why did you allow yourself to be manipulated?
Yes, like, it's like, but that his intentions were good. So why aren't we talking about the person that was bad? Like, that's the issue at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I did really feel for Harry in this moment. And then I felt for him even more because fucking Phineas Nigellas just has to...
He just, like, loves something. To talk this chapter. He's a big chatterbox. My God.
And then he basically is asking if there's a message that he needs to communicate to his, I think he says, useless great-great-grandson, which I was like, oh, my God, please shut up. And so then Harry's obviously very overwhelmed by this. And then he just straight up tries to leave the room. But he can't because... there's like a spell that's locked him in the room. And then another portrait asks Harry if him being there means that Albus Dumbledore is going to be coming back to Hogwarts. And Harry just kind of is like, because he just like doesn't want to interact with them. To which this portrait says, oh, great, because it was really boring without him here. And then he adds, Dumbledore speaks very highly of you, which within Harry... makes his insides squirm because he's already feeling that guilt and like self-hatred. And so then, yeah, it says his insides writhe. And I was like, ooh, yeah, he's just in the worst place. So pretty much right after that, Dumbledore walks out of the fireplace into the office. He's got little BB Fox and he just like pops him onto the little stand. Yeah. Bloop. And then he says that all of the other students, all of Harry's friends, they'll be fine. Hermione's going to have to go to St. Mungo's briefly, but she'll be okay. Everyone else is good. To which Harry, it doesn't work in the way that I think Dumbledore intended because Harry just feels worse because he's like, oh yeah, and it's my fault that like they all were injured too. Like I led them into the Ministry of Magic. So he's just feeling a lot of guilt. He's very ashamed of, you know, taking all these people along and that they've gotten hurt. And then at this moment, Dumbledore says, I know how you're feeling, Harry. Now, us girlies who have read the series, the full series, we know actually that this is a very
similar
honest statement because what Dumbledore has gone through when he was little Albus and what little Albus went through with his sister, Ariana. With his sister Ari, what happened in that situation, we know that he really genuinely means this when he says this. But
girl, were you gooped and gagged when you got to, is it book 6 and you found out that is it 6 or 7? Where you find out it's Ariana.
It's 7. No. Yeah, it's 7 because it's after he's passed.
Yeah.
You should have seen my face. It was a full like. Let me do a little recreation right now. I was like reading it, and I promise you, this is what happened. I was like,
"Hi, my name's Ari, and I'll be doing a recreation of my
scene." I was reading, and then I got to it, and I was like, and I think I, for a moment, just was like, had to like stop. No, it's not spelled. 2 R's,
1 N.
I think it's 1 R, 2 N's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which is the most common way of spelling it. But I had to like stop and fully take a moment. Because when I read it, I was like, did I read that wrong? Like I was like, her name is Ariana. And then in the movie, when Emma Watson said Ariana, I was like, oh! I just couldn't believe it. Yeah. I was like, Emma Watson saved my name. Oh, I can't imagine. Anyway, so yes, Dumbledore says he knows how he is feeling. Harry responds with an absolutely you do not. You have no idea how I'm feeling.
Right.
Phineas I cannot with him. He is pissing
Billie
me off.
Eilish, come get your brother.
Yeah.
Phineas.
Phineas would never.
No.
Phineas Nigellas makes a comment about how he's like, see, Dumbledore, you should never try to understand the students. And I'm like, please shut up, which is basically what Dumbledore says in a nice way. He's like, that's enough of that. That's enough of that, girl. Because they're both queens. Comment. These two. Yes, very Mary Poppins comment. Oh, yeah, when she's like, will you be quiet?
Yeah.
Harry, he's looking out onto the grounds, and then he's looking at the Quidditch pitch, and everything is reminding him of Sirius. So he's like, oh, that's where Sirius came and watched me play Quidditch as the dog, and he probably was coming to see me because he wanted to know if I was as good as my dad, and I never asked him. I've never asked him, so great. That's one thing I'll always regret, that I never asked Sirius that. And then Dumbledore, I don't know how I feel about this, because I do understand what Dumbledore is saying, but I don't know how I feel about his approach, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
I appreciate the calmness, because I don't think it helps to like
match.
Yes. Like I think it's good that he's just like the rock. But when he's saying the bit about Harry's ability to feel pain like this is one of his greatest strengths, I'm like, maybe don't say that like right now. Like maybe just like give it some time. Because I was like,
what you're going
for. What you're going for.
Because Harry's nemesis is someone who can't feel. So like fair enough. But like,
not everything's about Voldemort, girl.
Right. Harry's also just going through regular human grief.
Yeah. So like, just like let him.
And like when Ariana passed, would it have appeased you to have been like, well, at least you can feel it?
Yeah.
Like, no.
No. When you're in the middle of it, it's just like the worst thing in the world. So you're like, that it doesn't help for someone to say that. So
I also quibbled with when he was like, I'm the reason Sirius is dead. I was like, well, we don't need to we can all just blame the person who's trying to kill everybody.
Thank you. I'm like, neither of you murdered him or set up this like very intense plot.
I wasn't annoyed with Harry who like blaming himself, because like Harry should blame himself. But like when Dumbledore was like, no, it's really my fault. I was like, why is this did you know that Kristen Wiig character?
The blame game?
The Kristen Wiig character was like, actually, I actually ran faster or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That one.
Cool.
What is that character's name?
I don't even know.
Remember?
I don't know. It was ages ago.
So Harry screams at Dumbledore that he doesn't want to talk about his feelings. And then he starts throwing stuff in Dumbledore's office. And the portraits are very upset about this. I was like, all right. Sit down, settle down. And Harry's like, to the portraits, is like, I don't care. I've had enough. I've seen enough. I want out. Like, I just want to be done. And then Harry.
I empathize with this moment for Harry, because he's like, I mean, I get he doesn't know the prophecy yet, but he knows that like keeps happening to him. So he's like, I would like to not be myself. I would like to be a normal person who does. I'd like to be one of these students going down to breakfast right now who's just like, what's going on?
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Like, I understand that this is a bit of a personal question, but like, have you ever had that feeling where you're kind of just like, where you get so overwhelmed with something, whatever it is, and you're just like, I just don't want to be myself right now? There's actually a 17 song. The Fuck My Life song where they sing about that.
Oh, yeah.
Which I love. But it's like that, when you feel that way, when you're just like, I just want to get out of like my own head and like just switch with someone else so I don't have to feel this way anymore. Have you ever
if I've ever had that
similar feeling? I mean, honestly, you are very lucky you have never felt that way. I would hope you would say no.
I mean, luckily I do contain empathy, which Harry Potter doesn't. So
right.
If he didn't have this feeling in this moment, he wouldn't be able to like understand, like, you know what I mean? But
no,
I honestly, I don't think I don't think that thought has ever crossed my mind. But now that you've said it, now the next time I feel bad,
Oh no,
I'll be like,
you're gonna. I just want to be someone else. Yeah, but just like not a good feeling. So he's like, I don't care. I've had enough. I'm over this. Boy, bye. Dumbledore responds by saying, you do care. You care so much that you feel that you'll burst with it. I believe that's almost verbatim what he says.
Yeah.
But I haven't ever heard it described as that it's like what you're feeling is so much like love or like grief that you literally has nowhere to go. And I do think that Dumbledore, you did hit that nail right on the head, that I think that is a good way of like, you do care. And that's why it's so painful right now.
Right.
So Dumbledore continues to remain calm while Harry just continues to like smash things. He like picks something off a table, then like throws the table itself. And then after Harry's done this, Dumbledore says, you've lost your parents and now you've lost your godfather. Like you've essentially lost the only other parental figure that you have really actually had. And then Harry screams at Dumbledore again, tries to run from the room and open the door, but of course the door still doesn't budge.
And Harry still is like a ding-dong who doesn't try Alohomora. Not that it would necessarily work, but like doesn't even attempt.
Think about that. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
I don't think Harry Potter uses the Alohomora spell
even
any
once
single time in this book series.
Maybe not.
I think it's always Hermione that uses it.
Yeah.
Oh, move over.
So Harry's like, let me out. I want to get out. You can't keep me here. And Dumbledore's like, I need to have my say because it's actually my fault that Sirius died.
Okay.
And I think you're going to want to hear what I have to say. So
we're all waiting with bated breath.
We're all waiting.
Because this has been a speech we've been waiting for a while, Miss Girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Dumbledore asks Harry to sit down, and Harry obliges. Phineas, after hearing this bit about Sirius, asks if he's like, am I to understand that Sirius, the last of the Black Line, is dead? And Dumbledore just simply is like, yeah. And then Phineas says he doesn't believe it and leaves his portrait to go check out the Black family house. He doesn't come back.
No.
He's gone the rest of the chapter.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of paintings in the Black House, so he's got to walk through all of them.
Just like through a maze.
Yeah.
A maze of portraits.
And there's just like a bunch of like portraits that aren't hung on a wall, like just stored in the attic.
Yeah,
so
then he's like going
stacks of
Hello? So Dumbledore begins giving Harry an explanation as the sun begins to rise, which I thought was kind of a nice little touch there. Good job. Mm-hmm. He starts explaining that he believed Harry's scar meant that he had a connection with Voldemort, to which Harry's like, yeah, I know. We've been over this. This is not new information to me. More recently, Dumbledore just keeps going. More recently, Dumbledore became concerned that the connection was even stronger than he had originally thought. So Voldemort, we get confirmation that Voldemort did indeed feel or like notice Harry's presence in his own mind when Arthur was attacked. So I think because they were both looking through Nagini's eyes, something about that, he was able to tell that Harry was also with him seeing that. So Dumbledore was distancing himself from Harry because he was worried that Voldemort would use Harry to spy on Dumbledore. And Dumbledore, he does make out like he's more concerned with like Harry being used. It's not that like he's like, and we couldn't let Voldemort have that information. He's like, right. I didn't want him to hurt you. And so I was like, okay. So it is like out of concern for Harry becoming like a puppet, which is nice because I kind of expected him to just say, we didn't want him to know what was going on with the order.
Right.
So then he recommends that Snape start teaching Harry occlumency. After they did begin occlumency lessons, Snape tells Dumbledore about Voldemort planting those images, or that Harry was dreaming of the Department of Mysteries, right?
Mm-hmm.
Department of Mystery. Is it Mystery or Mysteries?
Mysteries.
I can't remember now. Okay. Department of Mysteries. And then Dumbledore knew at that point that this was about the prophecy. So he's like, oh, okay. And this is where I will say, Dumbledore, you have 100% messed up. Because if you know that Voldemort is planting these images in Harry's head, but you don't intervene to tell him, why wouldn't you just tell him that? Like, he would understand.
Okay, two things.
Yeah.
One, this is where he's like, he specifically calls the prophecy the weapon of knowledge. And I was like,
oh, I see. I must have missed that when I was like furiously typing
I was
the
like,
weapon of knowledge.
Joe, you wrote yourself into a corner and you were like, how do
Yes,
make
that's exactly
that work?
what that is. Yeah, no, girl, sorry. That doesn't work for us.
Even Albus Dumbledore, who does speak like he's a sphinx, is not going to call it a prophecy, a weapon of knowledge, girl.
So casually.
And then the other thing that I was annoyed by was in this chapter again, he makes the point of being like, but of course, it has to be, the prophecy can only be grabbed by someone who the prophecy is about. And it wasn't like Voldemort was just going to walk into the Ministry of Magic. And again, I was like, he did. We just had a chapter in which
where that
he did
is
that.
Exactly what happened.
Why do we keep promoting this lie?
Oh, girl, I don't know. So basically, because Dumbledore knows that Voldemort is trying to show Harry these images of the Department of Mysteries, it's even more important that Harry master occlumency. To which Harry responds by saying, but I didn't master it. I kept having those dreams. And then like Sirius ended up in the ministry and now Sirius is dead. And then pretty much right after that, he does try to explain himself a little bit by mentioning that he did try to verify that Sirius was there by asking Creature. And Dumbledore just flat out is like, yeah, Creature lied.
Yeah,
he just lied. He's
lied.
been serving more than one master for a very long time now. He's been working with Bellatrix and the Blacks, which I guess Bellatrix is technically a Black. That's her maiden name.
Narcissa.
Yeah, Narcissa. Oh, it wasn't Bellatrix?
It was Narcissa, yeah.
Oh, okay,
he went to the
sorry.
Malfoy house.
Oh, okay. So, sorry, that's what I meant to say. I thought it was Bellatrix in the Malfoys, not the Blacks, excuse me. I thought he had a whole thing with Bellatrix, though.
She wasn't brought up in this chapter.
Oh, okay. He just had that photo of her, I guess. So he's going over to the Malfoys.
Because she didn't get Bellatrix just got out of prison.
Oh, was it that recent? This is what I'm saying, that once we finish chapters,
Adam,
it's like out of my
So Bellatrix had just gotten out, but they say that during Christmas break was when, I guess, or maybe like right before then was when Sirius told him to get out.
Yes.
And
so he did.
He really Amelia Bedelia'd and took it literally and left the damn house.
And went to the Malfoys. Yeah. And showed up at the Malfoys. So, which is so crazy because I'm like, we know how the Malfoys treated Dobby. So I'm like, sorry, Creature, they can't be like that nice to you. I guess maybe they're trying to be extra nice to get information from him.
I don't think they're nice to him. I think they treat him the way he wants to be treated.
The way he thinks he should be treated, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, they're definitely more kind to him than Sirius, but I think it's just to get information from him. So, Yeah, he took it literally when Sirius told him to get out. He went to the Malfoys, and then he's basically been doing what he can to like give them information because he can't straight up disobey a direct order if Sirius has given, like, if Sirius is like, you can't tell anyone about the order or like, you know, that this is our headquarters, then he really can't. But he can share stuff about that Sirius really cares about Harry and that Harry most certainly would rescue Sirius. So like it is information that obviously is valuable to Voldemort. So after Harry told Snape about Padfoot, apparently Dumbledore explains that Snape did understand what Harry said in that moment. And he was able to verify that Sirius was indeed home because the Order has ways of contacting each other directly somehow. Once again, would have been nice for the kids to know this. But when the kids didn't come back from the forest, Snape was concerned that they might have gone to the ministry themselves because they thought that Sirius was actually in trouble. So once that happened, Snape was able to contact basically the main members of the Order that we know, like Tonks, Moody, Lupin. Anyone? It was Kingsley.
Kingsley, yeah.
Anyone else? Just those four? Okay.
It was them, and then Sirius came with them.
Yeah. So originally Snape had asked Sirius to remain behind as he needed someone there to tell Dumbledore what happened when he arrived. However, Sirius did not want to stay behind. He went, and then he told Creature to pass the message on to Dumbledore. So I feel like hopefully for Harry...
It's very impressive that Dumbledore has ascertained all of this information in 30 minutes.
Yeah, great. No, this information he got from the Creature situation. Like when he legilimens Creature.
Yeah.
So apparently Creature told Dumbledore where Sirius had gone, and he was like laughing while he was telling him.
Yeah.
And this is where we find out basically that like Voldemort was able to get the information he needed about Sirius and Harry's relationship, and then therefore how to manipulate Harry and Sirius and Harry basically to get what like, Voldemort wanted.
What? Okay, so I get that like for the narrative structure, Creature had to be nefarious.
Yeah.
I don't really understand what information Creature would have provided that like Voldemort couldn't have figured out. Just like I just like the whole thing of being like, he had no idea that Harry and Sirius had a relationship until Creature confirmed it. I was like, I don't know. I feel like I'd be like, oh yeah, it's his godfather. Because like Pettigrew would have told him that.
Yeah, that's true. Pettigrew would have told him that. I don't know. I think it's more just they have someone that is on the inside that can kind of help manipulate things in their favor.
I mean, she had to write it so that he gives him wrong information about Sirius's whereabouts.
Right. So apparently what happened was Creature injured Buckbeak so that Sirius had to be tending to Buckbeak when Harry tried to contact him. So they must have assumed that it was definitely going to be by flu powder or like putting your head through flu powder. Like I was like, because if Harry would have used the mirror, then that would have like ruined the whole plan. So you're assuming it's definitely going to be the fireplace. I think a bit too much.
It's weird that, it's weird that they know that that's, I mean, unless they are like, oh, because they know they've communicated via fireplace already. And so, right, because they did in the book 4 and he's now done it in book 5 as well.
Right.
So maybe Creature was
maybe
like,
that's why, yeah.
They've talked, so he'll
that's
probably try to come back.
That's how he's been communicating with him up until that point, basically.
Yeah. Do you know how mad I got when he opens the mirror in the next chapter? Ari.
I told you. It makes
Why
no
did she
sense.
write that into the book? Why?
Great question. Great question. It does come back in another book, but I don't feel like that's enough. It's not enough for me.
It's not enough.
So Dumbledore made Creature tell him the whole truth. He didn't want to, obviously. And then Harry's like, and Hermione told us to be nice to him. To which Dumbledore responds by saying, yeah,
you should have been.
And she's right. Sirius wasn't very nice to him, and that was a huge part of the issue. That actually was the issue. And Harry's like, don't you talk about him that way. He's like, don't you dare talk about him that way. And then he kind of deflects by changing the subject to Snape. And he's like, well, what about Snape? Like, we told Snape, and he made it sound like he didn't even know what we were talking about. And Dumbledore responds by saying, well, of course he did, because you were in front of Umbridge, so he couldn't let on like he knew. I don't know if that's enough for me. I got to be honest, because if Snape is he's such a good legilimens or whatever, couldn't he send a message to Harry that he understood somehow? I just don't know if that's enough for me. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard because I'm trying to piece together how fast everything happens in the last couple chapters too.
Yeah.
When she was when he saw that you never came back out of the forest, he knew something might be wrong. I was like, oh, so that's why they had to leave from the forest.
Yeah, directly.
Yeah. Goofy.
So Dumbledore is basically defending Snape. He mentions, that he had to act that way in front of Umbridge, that he's been helping by letting the Order know certain stuff. And he also gave Umbridge fake Veritaserum when she was going to try and use Veritaserum on Harry. Mm-hmm. But Harry's having none of this. And he's like, well, he stopped giving me occlumency lessons. And Dumbledore's like, yeah, I probably should have taught you myself, to be fair. That was a mistake. And Harry's like, oh, but that's okay. That you've made a mistake, I guess. And he's like, my scar always hurt worse after lessons with Snape. How do you know he wasn't just trying to make it worse for me? Mm-hmm. And Dumbledore's like, because I trust Snape. And so he trusts Snape, but then he does admit that he shouldn't have been teaching Harry occlumency lessons because clearly Snape couldn't let go the hatred that he had for Harry's father. And then Harry feels like he's kind of got Dumbledore in this moment. And he's like, oh, okay, so it's fine for Snape to hate my dad, but it's not fine for Sirius to hate Creature. And Dumbledore is like, no, well, that wasn't hate. So he didn't see Creature as anything more than a servant, not worthy of interacting with at all. And he never really gave him any real attention. He just neglected him. And that's kind of why it was worse. Yeah. And then there's this whole bit where he mentions the fountain at the Ministry and how he's like, wizarding kind is really paying for, we've reaped what we sow in terms of how we treat other magical beings. And what's happening now is, because it's our own fault. And I was like, okay, yeah. I was like, okay, I agree with this. And just because they're treating these other magical beings essentially as being inferior, which I
was glad that he referenced the fountain because we had so much to say about it at the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
And I was like, so it's good. So it is purposeful.
There's a reason. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then Harry, after hearing Dumbledore say this, Harry's like, oh, okay, so you're basically saying Sirius deserved what he got. And Dumbledore is like, I never said that, and I never will say that. He was a kind man, and he was kind to house elves in general. He just didn't have any love for Creature because he was a reminder of the home that Sirius hated growing up. And Harry's like, yeah, he did hate it. And you made him stay there. You made him stay shut up in that house forever.
This is truly, Dumbledore has the patience of a saint because I'd be like, yep, you're right. Okay, bye. I was going to tell you the rest of the story, but no, you just want to keep interrupting. So go ahead. Since you would,
Adam,
since
I can
you know
see
every fucking thing, go ahead.
I can see you saying
that. You can't even open this locked fucking door, girl. You're so fucking stupid.
Allahamora, girl.
Allahamuhu.
Allahamuhu. So Harry's like, yeah, he hated it and you made him stay in that house all the time. To which Dumbledore says, I was trying to keep him alive. And like, I get that he wasn't very happy there. And then Harry says, yeah, people don't like being shut up. You did it to me all last summer. And so this, Adam, I think this is Dumbledore's equivalent, though, of being like, he just like takes a minute to be like, do you know what was really happening behind those hands? He was like, oh my God.
He's just like fully rolling his eyes.
Like side eye to like one of the portraits so they could like see it. Yeah. It's like this kid. So then when Dumbledore puts his head in his hands, Harry's like very confused by this. And this was very interesting to me because I think a lot of people react this way when they're angry. It's kind of like, no, you can't have emotions because like I'm mad and like yelling at you right now. So like, you don't get to feel things. Like, it's like, okay. Sorry, I'll just be a robot. So then at this point, after Dumbledore, stops holding his head in his hands, he says, you know what, Harry? I'm going to tell you everything. I thought we were already getting everything. We've reached a new level.
Yeah.
Is he like, oh, now it's like now I'm going to go. Now we're going to go into everything. Or like,
right.
Is this the moment that he actually decides he's going to tell him everything? Or had he already decided and now he's like getting back on track? I was kind of confused by that. I didn't really know. Because he goes back. He's like, let's start with when you arrived at Hogwarts 5 years ago. And he goes back to like essentially the first time he saw Harry as like, not a baby.
And then he goes back like 16 years.
Yeah. And then he goes back even more. So he's like, I knew you had faced 10 very difficult years. I did what I did to protect you from Voldemort, because I was really the only person that knew he wasn't really gone. So he was like, I knew he was going to come back, and I was just doing what I could to keep you alive. So he comes back to how Voldemort has always underestimated love. And therefore, the love that protects Harry, which is this ancient
mother.
Yes. The love of his mother specifically.
The parent he doesn't care about.
The parent he doesn't ever talk about. The love of his mother that protects Harry is an ancient magic that, because Voldemort despises it, he underestimates it. So Dumbledore was like, that's what I'm going to capitalize on, boo-boo. I'm going to capitalize on the fact that he just does not even like to think about this very ancient, powerful magic. So he puts his trust in the blood of his mother and sent him to where his mother's blood dwells. So as long as Harry calls that place home, he'll be protected by the blood of his mother. So Harry's like, but she doesn't love me. And Dumbledore's like, yeah, but she took you in. So therefore, as long as you can call that place home, that magic is alive because she has taken you in.
Yeah. So
I'm like, okay. We learn that Dumbledore explained to Petunia in the letter why, like, he would be protected if he did stay at the house, the place where his mother's blood dwells. Petunia's house. So Petunia did know that he'd be protected.
Because Dumbledore basically transferred the magic to her house.
Yeah. That's what
he
I'm
like did a
thinking.
charm that was like
Yeah.
a wire transfer of funds.
Yeah. Exactly. He Venmo'd her.
Yes.
So, blah, blah, blah. Where is that? And then at this moment, Harry recalls the howler from this previous summer.
Yeah.
He's like, that was you. That was your voice.
Remember my last girly.
Remember my last girly. And then Dumbledore does indeed confirm this. He wanted to remind her of her promise because he thought in that moment that she might waver a bit on what she had agreed to do. So she did, in fact, end up keeping Harry. Dumbledore goes back to when Harry arrived at Hogwarts. He was not as well nourished as Dumbledore would have liked him to be, but Harry was doing well, considering all that, living with the Dursleys had been like. So then basically Dumbledore's taken us through the books. He's like, book 1, you faced Dumbledore and survived. I'm sorry,
Voldemort.
you faced... Wait, what is this? Did you see that?
Did you see that?
Adam! What was that? Adam! What was that? Adam!
Do it again. Hold it. Oh!
What is that? That's something through...
Zoom.
No. That's something through Omi. My Omi recorder. It's showing up on my Omi screen.
Does
that happen for you? What was that? Do your other side.
Oh, mine just shows up on Zoom as like a little. There's like an icon that just popped up.
Oh yeah, I see that. Okay.
So yeah, yours must be through Omi. That's wild.
That was so weird. I was like, I saw a ghost. So then Dumbledore's taken us through the books. He's like, okay, book 1, you faced Voldemort and survived again. Should I have told you? Should I have let you know then that, the truth about you and Voldemort? Well, I didn't. And then in your second year, you discovered
guess
the
what?
chamber.
I didn't.
And then in your second year, you discovered the Chamber of Secrets, and then you faced off young Riddle. Should I have told you then? You were 12. I still thought that was too young. And then he's like, do you see the flaw in the plan? Can you see the flaw in my plan yet? And Harry's like, doesn't get it. And then Dumbledore admits that he started to care about Harry. So he started to care about him, even though he told himself to stay removed and not get invested. But because he's been watching Harry and following his journey, he's starting to care about him. And
I love that this insinuates though that Albus Dumbledore doesn't care about most of the children at Hogwarts.
I'm not invested in anyone but you.
Yeah.
He's he also is saying that he has kept such a close eye on Harry. He's like, you have no idea what a close watch I've had on you. And I was like, okay, creepy.
Yeah.
Dumbledore, get your own life. So then we're into year 3. He's like, he mentions that Harry found out what Sirius was and then helped to save him. Then he mentions the Triwizard Tournament and how Harry came out of the maze with Sirius's dead body. And then he had survived. Cedric's dead body. And then even after all of that, he's like, he couldn't bring himself to tell Harry the truth. So he's like, I knew I would have to tell you because last year, obviously, Voldemort had in fact come back and I still hadn't told you. So now he's here and I knew I was going to have to tell you ASAP, basically. Mm-hmm. And then Dumbledore starts talking about the prophecy. So Harry admits that it's broken. He's like, I dropped it. Or Neville. Yeah. Neville dropped it. And then Dumbledore shares that actually he was the one that witnessed the prophecy.
So what the ministry has is just like a record of the prophecy.
Yeah.
Which, like, can they make another record? Like, why
Is
are
that
you
record
why
made
are you
with-
making records out of glass balls? Like, there's got to be like a digital file system that we can implement here. What's going on?
Just get a little USB drive, girl. So Dumbledore shares that he was the one that witnessed the prophecy. It was him. So could he have picked it up technically? Or it's because it was about Harry, Dumbledore couldn't get it?
I think because it's about Harry, he couldn't pick it up.
Okay.
But he does confirm Voldemort could have picked it up. He just didn't want to. He didn't want to walk into the ministry. He just didn't want to risk going to the ministry. But then, like, Harry shows up and no one's at the ministry.
There's not even a security guard there, as we
It wouldn't have been better for Harry Potter to show up at the ministry.
Okay. Anyway. So basically, Dumbledore reveals that he was hosting a job interview with the great-granddaughter of a very gifted seer. And unfortunately, this job interview wasn't going very well. It didn't seem like she had her grandmother's gift. And then just as he was like going to peace out.
This is at the Hog's Head, by the way.
Yeah, at the Hog's Head, which he was like, that's not the best place. It's easy to be overheard at the Hog's Head, apparently, but he had no idea that he would be hearing anything of importance, which is why he met her at the Hog's Head.
Yeah.
So then Dumbledore takes out this memory, puts it into the pensieve, and then we hear the prophecy made by none other than Sybil Trelawney.
Sybil Patty.
Sybil Patty. This is what it says. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches. Born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies, and the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have power the Dark Lord knows not. And either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives.
That, I believe that line specifically is iambic pentameter. For either that part.
And either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. It is, yeah.
Yeah.
The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord will be born as the 7th month dies. She already said that.
Yeah, she I think the memory just starts repeating itself.
Oh, slowly revolving. Yeah, so yeah, she just like keeps revolving basically. So
can we go line by line through this? Can we go line by line?
Yeah.
Line number 1. Mm-hmm. The baby. He approaches. Harry Potter approaches.
The baby.
The baby approaches.
The baby is born. Away in a manger.
Line 2 is it's the thrice
defied him. Yeah.
Okay, so we can narrow it down to, and then with that being the July 31st birthday, we can narrow it down to Neville and Harry, which is what happens.
Yep.
And then the Dark Lord chooses or marks one as his equal.
Yes. So he is marking them. He is selecting who will be like his nemesis, basically.
Yeah.
And he'll have powers that the Dark Lord knows not.
That's love.
And either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives.
And either must die at the hand of the other. But isn't that part... I know in the context of the series... The second half of that is what's focused on neither can live while the other survives. Mm-hmm. But isn't that for either can... What is the first part? Either can what?
And either must die at the hand of the other.
Isn't that part saying they both have to kill each other? Which is, sorry, spoiler alert, what ends up happening, technically.
Either must die. Yeah, I think it's like they have to kill each other.
Yeah.
They're going to meet their own demise one way or another by like having a face off. So basically, we learn that someone overheard this and told Voldemort the first part. But he doesn't know
say
this.
Who.
He doesn't say who noticed.
Who heard it. Mm-hmm.
We don't know who heard it.
It wouldn't make Harry Potter feel any better. I'll say that.
No. And Harry's like, what is that? What does all of this mean? And Dumbledore's like, obviously it's someone born at the end of July, both whose parents had like worked for the Order and kind of like escaped Voldemort already. Mm-hmm. And so that narrows it down to him and Neville, as Adam said. And then Harry's like, but why wouldn't it say like Neville and my name? And they're like, well, Voldemort selected you clearly because he killed your parents. So you were chosen. And then Harry's like kind of grappling with, he's kind of clinging to the hope that like maybe it isn't actually him. Mm-hmm. And Dumbledore's like, but that's the part of the prophecy, is that he made you the one that the prophecy is talking about it. Like
he decided you were his equal.
He decided. He didn't know that's what he was doing.
Because he didn't hear the whole prophecy.
He didn't hear that whole prophecy. But he marked you himself. And the reason why is because he saw himself in Harry before ever actually seeing him, because of the fact that they're both half-bloods. And then basically because he marked Harry, he then essentially like helped empower the power within Harry that the Dark Lord knows not. He amplified that power by the fact that Harry's mother sacrificed herself to save him. And so now Harry's like continuously protected by the love of his mother. And that's why he's been able to like escape from Voldemort like 4 times at this point.
Right.
So obviously because Voldemort didn't have the full prophecy, he didn't know that he was doing this. Basically when he went to go attack Harry's parents, when he murdered Harry's parents to get to the baby, to get to baby Harry, he didn't know that in doing that, he was basically like screwing himself over because he didn't have the full picture. So then he went and did what the prophecy said he was going to do. And then
he thought he was going to beat the prophecy, and he ended up
he thought he was going to beat
the
prophecy. Exactly. And so, but then Harry's like, but I don't have any powers. Like, I don't have anything. And Harry's like, sorry, not Harry, excuse me. Dumbledore just like interrupts Harry, and he's like, do you know that there's a room in the Department of Mysteries that's locked at all times?
Just a complete non sequitur.
Yeah. And he's like, it's the power of love. That's the power of love, which is why Voldemort couldn't stay in your body for even like 1 second longer, because he was so uncomfortable with feeling that feeling. And so Harry then asks, oh, what? Yeah, go ahead.
I thought that was like a goofy way to be like, that's what was in the locked room. I still think it's the break room, but.
It's the break room, and you know who's in there? The Dementors. That's where they go for their break.
Yeah. The mystery of love is behind a locked door.
That no one ever goes into.
Okay.
Do you remember? I couldn't remember, though.
Whatever. I'm fine.
I couldn't remember, though. Do you remember if there was a door that just wouldn't open, that they never were able to open?
Yeah.
Okay. And that was the door. Yeah. Then that's the door he's referring to.
You really do forget as soon as the chapter's over.
I couldn't remember. I was like, well, I was pretty sure, but I was like, I don't want to confidently say that because I couldn't remember for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's bad. Like sometimes I'll be like, when was that? Was that in this book? Sometimes they'll blur together.
They have a room that is basically space.
No one goes in or out. It's just locked.
But they can't deal with the love room.
Can't. It's too much.
So funny.
Harry, understandably, asks about the end of the prophecy. Neither can live while the other survives. And he's like, does that mean one of us is going to have to kill the other one? And then this is basically confirmed.
Can
Harry-
I ask you a question? We
Yeah.
have okay.
I'm like, will I be able to answer it though?
We've read. It's about your experience of reading this the first time.
Oh, okay.
Harry takes this information really hard. Like, he is like blown back by the concept that he is going to like have to either kill Voldemort or be killed by Voldemort. This is like huge for Harry. And it's huge in the book series.
Yeah.
As a reader, weren't you like, yeah, that's what we're headed to? Mostly, even understanding like the book series, whatever, I felt like this never made a lasting impression on me because I felt
just
like I
knew that's where it was heading.
Not even because it was a book series, but like, this man has tried to kill you every single year for the past 5 years of your life, and he started to when he was a baby. Like,
Yeah.
you are now, even if there was no prophecy adjudicating that this had to happen,
Yeah.
he's clearly stuck on you, girl.
Yeah.
And like, he's like a dog with a bone. He's not going to let up until you drop dead. So
Yeah.
I would have just assumed at this point that we're going to have to like finish each other off or something. Like, he's so like, I can't believe he really wants to kill me. I'm like, oh, that hasn't been clear so far?
I don't know. I see, that's interesting though, because I don't think I did read it as that way. I think it was more Harry has realized that like he really is going to have to kill Voldemort. Like, that's going to be essentially like his mission.
He's not going to just be able to Expelliarmus his way out of it.
Yeah,
which he does do.
Yeah. But I think that's the way that it like works out well in the end, right? For our hero, that it's like Voldemort has he is the reason for his own demise in the end. Like, he's killed himself basically.
I think it would be good for them to teach maybe not Muggle studies, but like maybe classic literature, just so Harry kind of learns what the hero's journey really is, so he can be like, "Oh, I'm in it.
Yeah,
I'm in that right now."
That's why, because there's not an English class. Yeah, there's not an English class,
right?
So that's
they're
why
not
he doesn't
reading
know.
Siddhartha. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But yeah, he's like, so basically, like one of us is gonna have to kill the other one, and Dumbledore says yes.
Yeah.
And then at that moment is the moment where Harry can hear people getting ready to go into the Great Hall to have their breakfast. And he's like, how can anyone even be thinking about food? How can anyone even be wanting to eat right now and like be thinking about anything else? Because he's like, his entire world has just changed right after he's lost his godfather, basically. Like, how could it get any worse?
I hate that that's the way she frames it, because all you would have to do is be like, because he asks it in such a way where it's like he's annoyed that like other people are just able to live their lives, and you could just frame it as being like, Harry longed to be one of the kids out in the hallway, like just going to breakfast, whatever, not having to grapple with this, blah, blah, blah. But because she frames it as being like, how could they just go to breakfast? That I'm like,
yeah, he's still in that angry. He's still in that angry space.
Yeah.
I think I remember one of my friends who very sadly lost her father while she was in college. And one time when she was talking about grief to me, she described it in this way, that she was like, when you are experiencing a grief, it feels like you're like frozen in time or like stuck kind of at that, whatever that moment was where like the grief like kind of took over, and everything else is just like kind of moving forward as it always does, like because that's how the world works, obviously. But that's what I thought of in this moment, that it was like he is having this moment where it's like he can't even think about anything else. But literally right down the hallway, people are just like going about their days. And it is a really weird feeling to like, so I think that's what I thought of when she mentioned that, or when she wrote that, but when Harry said that. And then this last bit of this chapter, Dumbledore brings up the fact that he never made Harry a prefect. He's like, I bet you're wondering why I didn't make you a prefect. And he confesses, a tear rolling down his face, that he thought Harry already had far too much to be getting on with. And so that is why he did not make him.
And so then Harry should have been like, okay, yeah, but why not Dean Thomas?
And then we came into the office and we said,
excuse me, knock, knock, knock.
Yeah. Or like through the portrait, like one of the portraits is like, excuse me. I actually think Dean Thomas was a good choice. I still stand by that. Sorry, Harry, honey. Sorry you're going through what you're going through, but
it should not have been Ron Weasley.
Chapter. It should not have been Ron. Sorry, Ron. Love ya.
Sorry, Ron. Love ya.
And that's it. That's the chapter.
Well, great, Ari. What a wonderful job you did.
Oh, thank you. I tried. Thank you.
Next week, we'll be reading the final chapter, chapter 38, The Second War Begins.
How did we get here? How did we get here?
Wow. We have, Ari, a comment from YouTube. This is from Yoonjum4988. Harry Potter is such a funny series because they answer the most random and obscure questions, like what is Trelawney's middle name or the entire history of Quidditch. But when it comes to just basic logic, like why do all of the wizarding transportation revolve around Muggle inventions? Or where do the professors live? Or do the characters even shower? JK has no answers. Love the pod.
And we never will have an answer.
And we never will have an answer.
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Wow.
You can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you find your podcasts, as well as video versions on the Ampliverse YouTube channel and Spotify. As always, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so that we can get a perfect Newt score. 5 stars only, or else you'll have to suffer through like a teenage boy, just
like throwing your
objects.
stuff. Yeah. Just throwing your stuff around. That's
the other
crazy
thing that's
to
so
me.
goofy is like, Dumbledore's just gonna be like, Reparo.
That's true, I guess. That's true. I was gonna say, I don't know, if someone threw around, like if a teenager tried to throw one of my cute little like side tables, I'd be like, I'm sorry, you better stop. You gonna go to IKEA and get me another one of those?
Yeah, it's just like I don't love when your anger starts to like exhibit in like violent acts.
A violent way, yeah.
It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel great.
Mm-mm.
Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HP Anxious or YouTube and TikTok at The Ampliverse. We are hosted on Spotify for podcasters, so thank you to them. And we are a proud member of The Ampliverse. Check them out at theampliverse.com. Thank you, Ariana, for your last chapter in this book. Wonderfully done. And as always, Nax.